Good morning, Dan and Amy. And you heard at the top Nigel Farage, the leader of the Brexit movement in Britain, of course, Britain voting to leave the EU, one of the shocks to the system that predated Trump winning the presidency. And I just want to play the full bite of what Nigel Farage said, because if Trump could just say as succinctly as Farage did on the issue of immigration and border security and national security, I think we'd be in a better place, and Trump is going to have an opportunity to do just that tomorrow night when he addresses Congress. Listen to Farage at CPAC.
And we've got to be clear. We're not against anybody based on religion or ethnicity. We're not against anybody, but we're for ourselves. We're for our country. We're for our communities. We're for making our people safe and with less risk from global terror. That is what we're for. That is what we're for. And we're for our country. And we're for our people. And we are winning.
And obviously you could hear the rousing reception that he received. And that's exactly it, because it turns out Britain, like America, very diverse. America much more diverse, but very diverse. So we're for our people. The rich diversity of that is contained under the umbrella of our people in this country. That is the point. And it would do Trump well, I think, to put a fine point on that tomorrow night. For more on national security matters, as well as Trump's speech as it relates to defense spending tomorrow night, we're pleased to be joined by our friend Jed Babbin again. Of course, Jed is a former Deputy Undersecretary of Defense, as well as a current contributor to the Washington Times and the American Spectator. Jed, thanks so much for joining us. Of course, I want to start by asking you how your Oscar party went. I know you're a big fan.
And were you surprised by the ending?
Well, frankly, I didn't watch it and didn't care.
Imagine that. That is, yes.
Yeah. Why does anybody care about what these guys do or say or think? I mean, the people in Hollywood are probably the most significantly ignorant people about politics, national security, global affairs of anybody I can think of. You could probably pick 10 people off the street in Chicago and find people who are better informed than the average actor.
Nice.
They did pick two Chicagoans off the streets and brought them in for a little, here's the regular people watching the Oscar segment. It was awful.
Nice Buckley paraphrasing
Yes.
the first 1,000 people out of the Boston telephone book, Jed Babbin. Very nice.
Well, that's always in my mind, you know. Buckley created so much good conservative rhetoric, it's hard to not remember and even to misquote him sometimes.
There you go. Let me ask you, before we get to Trump's speech and some of the other policy matters, the issue of a probe into the Trump-Russia Connect. Big news on Friday was Darrell Issa, the California Republican congressman, joining Democrats in supporting the probe and calling for Attorney General Sessions to recuse himself. But one of his delegation mates, Devin Nunes, who is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, said that this is a witch hunt. So who's right? Which Republican is right?
Well, Nunez is probably right, and all I can say is if ICE's investigation into this is as effective as its investigations into Fast and Furious, into the IRS scandal, Mr. Trump and his people are going to have a lot of time wasted and there would not be any result. So it's just and ICE is famous for running really poor investigations. His people, frankly, didn't even know how to cross-examine Lois Lerner when she claimed the Fifth Amendment after having remarked that she was innocent. You know, it's really dumb. He's just not much more than a shot sideshow.
Well, do you think it was a publicity stunt on his part?
Well, of course, Amy. That's all he's good for. I mean, come on.
Well,
will
will there be any political payback from Donald Trump because of this move on his part?
I doubt it. It depends on how much of an aggravation it turns out to be. You know, if it takes up a lot of people's time with subpoenas and so forth, then yeah, Mr. Trump will probably try to say some things about Mr. Issa, which are not going to be very kind, but are all probably going to be true. So yeah, it's going to be an annoyance. It's probably not more than a pinprick, and you know, it's like watching the Oscars. Who cares?
This is a sensitive topic we do care about. The father of the Navy SEAL who was killed in that mission in Yemen a few weeks back, Bill Owens, the father of Ryan Owens, said he didn't make a spectacle of himself, but he declined to meet with President Trump. He declined to meet with President Trump in part because of his feelings about how Trump treated the Khan family during the campaign, a Gold Star family. And he also questioned the mission in which his son was killed and wants an investigation, said Mr. Owens. Why at this time did there have to be this stupid mission when it wasn't even barely a week into his administration? Why? For 2 years prior, there were no boots on the ground in Yemen. Everything was missiles and drones because there was not a target worth one American life. Now, all of a sudden, we had to make this grand display, said Mr. Owens. How do you react to that?
Well, I can understand why Mr. Owens is feeling the way he feels. I think some of his criticisms are probably on the mark. We don't know why this mission was handled the way it was or launched the way it was. Obviously, there was some very major mistakes in it, and there may have even been a leak by someone to let the bad guys know we were coming. Okay, you found a situation here where the SEALs encountered a whole bunch of people, including a bunch of women, who had obviously been trained, who took up their arms immediately, who shot back at the SEALs, may have caused the casualty. We just don't know. There are a lot of questions that need to be answered, but this is the kind of thing that we don't need a congressional investigation. We need to have Special Operations Command look into what went wrong and then to tell the president.
But wasn't this mission in the works during the Obama administration?
Probably was, but that doesn't make any difference, Amy. I mean, the people who pulled the trigger have the responsibility. Mr. Trump and his commanders have the responsibility, and I don't believe they're going to shirk it. We'll have to see. But I've never been, thank God, I've never been in the position that Mr. Owens is in, having lost a son in combat. And quite frankly, I can't tell you that I'd be doing anything different.
Yeah.
If heaven forbid I was in that position.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like with the Khan family, what we said during the Khan controversy. Look, you just let parents and family members that are grieving say whatever they're going to say. It's not my position to judge their opinion about it. You just talk about the policy. And so on the policy, though, I mean, then you get the reactions from, like, John McCain, I got to say. John McCain made one of the silliest statements I've ever heard, especially from a decorated war hero like McCain is. He said that of the Yemen mission, that you cannot call any mission in which an American life is lost a success. Well, how would he describe D-Day?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's Mr. McCain definitely is a war hero. But I'll tell you, I can't remember the last time he was right about anything. And just because he was a war hero doesn't give him license to, frankly, be wrong for, 30 years or so consecutively.
Okay. Yeah,
all right. So on Friday, while Donald Trump was speaking at CPAC, Sean Spicer decided to confiscate the cell phones during a meeting to find sources of leaks. Would you ever hand your phone over to your boss in order to keep your job?
No. I have handed my phone in several times to go into a skiff for meetings, but that's the only time I've ever handed over my phone. And, quite frankly, my phones, whatever they were, coming up to today's iPhone 6, they're pretty much part of my body, so I don't usually part with them at all.
Yeah, but that's because you have like a one of those old bag phones from the 80s handcuffed to your wrist.
Well, no, be nice. I've got an iPhone 6.
Wow.
I used to have one of those. When I was in the Pentagon, I had one of those that looked like a brick.
Yeah,
And was not much lighter, frankly.
But what about the underlying issue of leaks and dealing with leaks coming from the intelligence community? What would your recommendation be?
Well, the intelligence community has a lot of things to answer for. I think the takedown of General Flynn is a major scandal that was caused intentionally by Obama holdovers. I think that needs to be found out and the leakers punished. But I think that routinely, Mr. Spicer is going to find that there are, every White House leaks like the proverbial sieve. It's going to happen. It's part of Washington. It's part of the basic function of government, unfortunately. But when things that are serious, that are really seriously kept as secrets, get leaked, like the NSA program of so-called warrantless wiretapping way back when the Times published it, even after receiving a phone call from the president. I mean, those things are very, very serious. those leaks have to be investigated and, quite frankly, punished to the fullest extent of the law.
He is Jed Babbin. He is former United States Deputy Undersecretary of Defense and now a contributor to the Washington Times and the American Spectator. Jed, thanks as always for being with us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, guys.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.